Once you get to be in your 50s, is it too late to start saving for retirement? That's going to be our topic on today's episode of Friends Talk Financial Planning. Hi, I'm John Shear, and I run a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin.
And I'm Bridget Sullivan-Mermel. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois. John, before we start talking about retirement at 50, let's ask people to subscribe. It helps us be found on YouTube, and it helps everybody see our content. Okay, John, let's talk about starting saving at 50.
Yeah, it's a great topic. We had a viewer that had written in with a question and said, hey, and we'll kind of round up the numbers to make it sort of easy, but basically I'm 50. I really haven't done a lot of saving for retirement. I make about $100,000 a year, and I've got about $100,000 saved up for retirement, and I'm just scared that I'm so far behind that I'll never catch up. It sort of feels hopeless. What was the feeling? And first of all, we love hearing from viewers, right, and talking about what's going on, what things can be meaningful that we can share here. And so I thought we'd just take that conversation and sort of dig into what are the numbers behind this? Does it work? And spoiler alert, it's not a hopeless situation. There are some reasons. I mean, this can work out really well with some modifications, and I thought we'd talk about that here today, and just like what it looks like and how to think about this.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is stop beating yourself up. You've got $100,000. That is, yeah. Let's talk about the skills required to have $100,000 saved. Okay, this is generally a multi-year endeavor. It probably took at least 10 years to get $100,000.
Right.
And so you've been saving probably for at least a decade. And that means that you haven't been spending as much as you've been saving. Your saving and spending has been balanced. So I think that people can discount that that's actually an accomplishment, and probably more than a vast majority of Americans have.
Right. I love that idea. Right. First, you start to think about, my tendency is, okay, what's wrong? And how can we fix things? You go, hang on a second there. You saved up $100,000. Like right. That's not zero, right? I mean, that's significant. And right. It's worth celebrating those things and going, okay, it's so easy for me anyway to beat myself up over, I wish I had, this much, or I wish I should have done better. I'm like, no, hang on a second. We did some good things. How can we improve it going forward then, right?
When I was in high school, I had a poster in my room that said, I'm so far behind, I think I'm first. About was stop thinking about the people that are way up there and start thinking about like the good things that are where I'm at. Like I look at what I'm doing. I'm actually ahead of a lot of other people,
Yeah.
It's easy to see my siblings or this or that person that have more than me, or this idea they turn on the TV, or but actually appreciate you're doing okay.
Right. Absolutely. It's so easy to make those comparisons when you see what other people are doing or what you think they're doing, right? Sometimes it's not even what they're actually doing, but what you feel that where you are on things. But let's maybe put some context to what does it mean now? Say if I'm 50, I'm earning $100,000, not saving a whole lot, or not saving what I feel I should be saving. And the reality is, yep, you're going to have to save some money. And if you start in your, we'd like to talk about with younger folks, you start in your 20s, you got to save 10% of your income, you're going to be okay. You get into your 30s, 40s, it's 15, probably have to start thinking about, saving and working up towards having 20% of your income going into savings, right? There are some changes that need to be made, but we put together, I went and just put together some numbers saying, hey, if we're 50, and had this exact scenario for our viewer and said, what happens in 10 years? What happens in 20 years? And the reality is that, retiring at 57 or 62, even when you've only saved up 1 times your income, right? It's probably not on the books for you, right? Some of those things that maybe you wanted to have, but as you look out towards 65 or 67 or 70, the farther out you go in there, the prognosis looks a lot better. And if that's the way, I just put together a calculation and said, listen, we start with 100 today. If I save 10% of my income, so starting with $10,000 and going up with inflation, and I invest it over the next 20 years, so I target age 70 as retirement age, depending on the interest rate that you use and these sort of things, you end up with like $1 million, $1.5 million, something like that in your retirement savings. And if you can save 20% of your income, which would be an ideal situation, you end up with close to $2 million, right? And of course, none of these are guarantees like, oh, you're going to have this. But the reality is, hey, over a 10 or 15 or 20-year period, and you put some money to work and build on what you've already started, you're going to be a millionaire with things, right? And so it might not be exactly how you pictured it when you were, started your career, all those sort of things. But where you are right now, you go, yeah, you can have a really nice retirement when you get into a spot where you've got $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million of spendable money, right? But then remember, you also, the farther along you go down the retirement or into, what your 60s and into your 70s, number one, you've got less time to spend that money, right? So less. You think about if we're going to live till 90, let's say, if you retire at 60, that's 30 years you've got to save for and live off your savings. If you can work until you're 70, now that's only 20 years. You've just cut the dollars that you need, the amount of cash flow, by a third, really significant. And then Social Security, it goes up the longer you wait until age 70. You get Social Security is probably paying you something in the $50,000 range at that stage, right? You go like, hey, we're starting to get there with those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got a bunch of levers that you still can pull. But here's my point, is that it's great that you looked at a video that was legit. I mean, we're just trying to help people, right? Not trying to like do something else with our videos. And it's like, so engagement is going to be one of the things that you want to change. Like, so it's not just savings, but it's also just like, I want to engage a little bit more in my finances, both in like, how much am I spending, and just tracking it will help. Just tracking it, not doing it, not getting anything, just track it, see what am I spending money on, so that you're spending the money on the things that you want to spend money on. And then, again, looking at the investing part a little bit, maybe how your 401k is invested, making sure that these things that you probably know you should do, you're doing, and finding some writers, podcasters, people like us that you like listening to, that you feel like are giving you solid practical advice that you can, again, get a little bit more engaged.
Yeah, yeah, and that's such a big deal, is the action part of it, right? Where, as we talk about, like you've done some good things to get to $100,000. It's not insignificant, but then we need to do more of those good things, right? I mean, the reality is, can you save? And I love that you brought up the budgeting and the tracking, not budgeting, right? Not like, here's what I'm going to spend next year, but what have I been spending? That's a really great thing that we talk about with folks that come into our offices. Well, if that person were to stop in the office and say, hey, I need some help. Well, what have you been spending? What's the dollars out the door? We talk with folks about, look back at your checking account statements or your credit card statements, and not necessarily where the money went, but how much went out the door. It's hard to argue with the money that went out of your checking account to pay the credit card and the mortgage and all those other things that you have, right? That's what we're spending. And then, as you just said, Bridget, how do you feel about that? Are you being intentional? Are you spending the money in the right places? And then there might come a time where you have to make some hard decisions and go, yeah, here's where the money's going. And geez, we do need to dig into the individual line items. We do need to see, golly, we got to cut back on some of those things in order to be able to save more. The other thing about this idea of, can I get to retirement is, and I respect so much this person for writing in and just asking on this, because it feels, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they use the word hopeless or pointless, or at least I'm like, oh man, it's just, I screwed it up. I can't fix it. Like, no, hang on a second, right? You're on track to be a millionaire, as we just talked about, right? I mean, you can still be on track to do that. But then the other thing comes down to these choices of, well, geez, I'd really like to retire at 60. Yeah, that one's probably not going to be able to get there, right? It's probably going to be 65 or 67 or 70.
Well,
And
if you want to do 60, then you're going to be probably you're going to be reducing your circumstances from your $100,000 a year lifestyle.
yeah, great.
In a rural town, and yeah.
I mean, that's exactly where I was thinking on this one, Britt, right? You want to live in Chicago or in Madison, two pretty high cost of living
Or for
places.
San Francisco,
Right. You go like, yeah, that doesn't work. You want to go to, northern Wisconsin. Spooner, Wisconsin's a beautiful place. Golly, the cost of living is a lot less up there, right? Maybe you only need to live on, instead of your $100,000 lifestyle, maybe it'd be $70,000 or $60,000 lifestyle. And and you might say, hey, coming from, especially coming from a city like Chicago, you go like, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to live in northern Wisconsin. Well, great. That's a choice. It's not like you can't do some of those things. I don't want to. Totally legitimate. But then what are the other levers? Oh, I want to do this. Maybe I have to work until I'm 75 for, it's these trade-offs, but it's not, I have no control. It's not, I have no chance. Like, no, we can get there. And then it's, well, how do you feel about this thing? How can you be intentional about your choices?
Yeah, and I want to applaud the people that have written in and said that they're afraid, they're terrified, et cetera, because that
Yeah,
to me is a sign of courage. That's not, that's a sign of like, I'm doing something, I'm more engaged. So
yeah,
that's one of the things that I think I admire, that to be,
yeah,
write that kind of deep stuff on YouTube comments.
right,
I
right.
appreciate that other people do,
Well, and you
so
get into a whole other discussion. That's I'm really good at the numbers, right? Calculate, no, you're on track to be. Then there's the whole emotional side of, right, the what. So maybe the takeaway from our episode here is, hey guys, it's not, no, the ship hasn't sailed. It's not, no, you can do this. Maybe there's another episode where we talk about, all right, how do you do this? How do you get your mind in that position where you can, be strong and be able to address those issues. But the takeaway for me here is like, hey, you're in your 50s, you're not where you felt like you want to be or should be. Not too late. There's things you can do. You can be engaged, you can take action, and you can get to retirement.
yes, exactly. And you can enjoy yourself. So
That's right.
let's wrap it up. I'm Bridget Sullivan Mermel. I've got a family financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. And both Bridget and I are taking new clients. And so we'd love to talk to you if you're interested in finding and working with firms like ours. But we're also members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, which is a nationwide group of fee-only tax-focused planners. And so if you like what you hear on our show and would like to talk to somebody else who has a similar philosophy and you want to find an advisor in your area, you can check out acplanners.org.
And don't forget to subscribe.